I was definitely an actor who could sing and dance. So I was pursuing a lot of musical theater, and I had a dance scholarship with Ambassador Auditorium, a beautiful uh, orchestra, beautiful structure built for a classical orchestra, very, very high-end theater and studio acclimation that I had when I was still in high school.
Oh,
And so I would structure my day so in my 10th and 11th year so that I could get out of school pretty close to my lunch break. And then I would jam straight over to the college and jump in for all my courses there. And while all that was going on, my little company that I was with at the college was performing all over the place, and we were touring a bit. And I was really getting a taste for a performer's life, being on the road, everything that goes with. I really, really loved it, but I was seeing how so many of my colleagues would run into injuries.
oh
And,
yeah.
as soon as you have even a small injury as a dancer, you're quickly replaced.
Hmm.
And I didn't like the feeling of how disposable you could be as a dancer. And I felt like really my strength as a dancer was theater arts. So it was performing ballets, performing dramatic materials. And it really all came back to acting again. And I realized that, yeah, I really wanted to focus on acting, and my dancing was just something I was doing at the time. It also was my work. I was
Hmm.
teaching and assisting in classes, and still trying to wrangle through high school and make college work, and auditioning for all kinds of on-camera things. And I was working on soaps. I worked on Young The Restless for a while, and
Oh,
I was in a couple of films. And it wasn't until a bit later that my voiceover career took off. I was focusing mostly on performing. I was doing a lot of plays in Hollywood.
okay.
And my focus was trying to originate material. So doing original plays, which sometimes means very rough, not polished work, sometimes, kind of poor writing, but I would do everything I could with a character because I really wanted to put my own spin and stamp on a character and not always recreate a character, which is
Right.
ironic because ADR and anime dubbing is always recreating a character.
Hmm.
So, I think in a way, my rebel spirit sort of processes that as my way to put a spin on the voice print of a character and an attitude without just replicating someone else's performance from another language.
Right. And do you think if you weren't born and raised in LA that you still would want to have pursued entertainment in some way?
Gosh, I've thought about that so much. I know I would have, and I
Okay.
can't imagine how anybody navigates coming from another state where their core support group is and everything they know, and leaving all of that to dive into a life in Southern California and
Hmm.
be up against the competition of Hollywood is just an unbelievably difficult sort of path to navigate.
Right.
It's really, really tough. And it's not the thing that I found though that always kept me sort of plugged in and encouraged is that it wasn't so much the competition, it was just the bodies. There was just
Hmm.
a lot of people. But when I, especially in theater, and I think that I did well in theater because I had fortitude. I would get through long audition processes, and you would hear what was going on in the audition room when you're waiting in the hallway for your turn to go in and read.
Right.
And it always seemed to me it wasn't a flood of talent. It was a flood of beautiful people, very
Hmm.
pretty bodies,
Right.
great looking faces, that kind of thing. But the deeper, better, tangible talent was a pretty thin pool. And I really felt like my asset was my intuitive approach to acting and my talent as an actor. So I
Hmm.
never relied on looks or connections or anything like that. And I can't even imagine how I would have made my way here. But I'm a Southern California girl. I was born and raised in Los Angeles with a excursion in San Francisco for some years, and ended up back here and finished school in LA. And I'm really proud to be a working actor in LA. I have a lot of friends, all creative people who have been mostly forced out of LA, just too expensive to live here.
Hmm.
I wonder how things will be now, though, after the after times after COVID.
Right.
You know, people will be able to work all over the country, especially
Mhm.
with post-production recording.
So another thing related to that, did you know a lot of people that you went to school with in high school that were trying to pursue the same thing?
That's interesting. I was about kind of 20 miles away from the scene in one of the
Mhm.
smaller suburbs in Los Angeles, and kind of the San Gabriel Valley for people that know this area, which isn't quite the same as being in Studio City or Encino or
Mhm.
in Hollywood or Burbank or any of those hubs where primarily I would say the industry of those cities is all catering to entertainment. Um, it's interesting because I didn't always discuss my goals when I was young in school age because I wanted to be taken seriously.
Mhm.
And I never wanted to be in a position where I would say, oh, I want to be an actress, and people would snicker at me.
Right.
It was demoralizing to me to have anybody not take me anything less than serious as a heart attack as an actor. So I didn't always share that dream with people, but yeah, I did have a few friends. It's interesting because post Facebook years, I've reconnected with some of those people who I never knew were interested in theater. And I have a couple friends from elementary school that ended up in voiceover, very much doing what I do. We've
Wow.
never intersected professionally, but we both pursued the same things. So that was ironic. This one friend of mine, Tracy Fow, she and I found each other. And I remember her as a very shy girl. And she says, that's so funny. I don't ever remember being shy. So you know, it's interesting when you're young. I did have a few friends that were into modeling.
Okay.
I had other dancer friends, singer friends. But it did seem that my core group of friends, kind of from those years, junior high to high school and up, I've maintained many of those friendships. I did gravitate to other artistic personalities. We just understand each other better.
Right.
And I always had friends across the board in all different circles. I wasn't a cliquey person at all. Um, very independent, very rebellious spirit, uh, leaning towards subversive at times, and sarcasm and humor and
Yeah.
sort of dark humor in days like these that we're in currently. But yeah, everybody I know pretty much that some
Oh,
form of the arts, and 9 out of 10 of us have had their dreams crushed and did not make a living out of it.
oh,
I'm
okay.
one of very few in my circle that went on to really, I think I just was, you know, incessant. I just think I wouldn't give up. I just believed that entertainment was where I was meant to be. And I really tried to stay focused on what is my path rather than forcing something that isn't working.
Right.
And that's sort of what happened with voiceover. It just became a flow and started coming to me easier than on-camera work was.
So then, question about on camera, when you were getting offered things prior to voiceover, did you just kind of get tired of what you were being offered? Did you not really feel that on camera was your thing?
No, I did. I loved it. It's
Okay.
what I wanted to do more than anything. I had a hard time with balancing survival, having day work,
Hmm.
uh, also studying dance full time, and rehearsing and being in production for plays in the evening.
Oh,
So time management became rough, and I refused to. I had made a pact with my mother, who was a very hardworking single mama who always had one to up to 3 jobs at a time, and she was doing various kinds of waitressing most of the time. We had dress shops. I was in the fashion industry for years and did other things, but because it was so hard on her in those days, women used to have to wear these little cocktail waitress costumes that were
right.
very, you know, skimpy and come hither, and they'd wear very tall heels, spiky heels, and she would be in so much pain in the evenings when she would come home from work that, you know, I would try to help her and soak her feet, rub her back, and, you know, listen to the stories and all of the strife that she would go through in a day. And she just turned to me one day and held my hands and said, promise me you'll never be a waitress. And I said, oh, Mom, that's what actresses do to support themselves. And she said, I don't want you going through this. And I said, I don't either. I just want to always be doing something toward my goal, something creative. So I couldn't wait tables. So I did a number of other things, but teaching always came very natural for me. I really enjoyed it. And my dance career very quickly came together with choreography and staging plays and directing. So I just kept evolving within the circle that I was in.
Okay. And I know I've seen the story and about how you got the role in Robotech. Do you remember what your second thing was?
Oh, good question. Second one. Pretty quickly after Robotech took off, I was working with Intersound, which was a studio in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard, in a very kind of upscale neighborhood of Beverly Hills, of all things. And it was mostly a foreign dubbing house. So in the daytime, they were dubbing primetime TV and soap operas into mostly Spanish, some other languages too. And they had to do them rapid fires to keep up with the broadcast schedule of these shows. So it wasn't until the evening that the English crews would come in, and I was part of that, kind of that first wave of the Hollywood core actors. I came in kind of at the end as one of the babies. I think I was 20 when I started, something like that. Between 20 and 24, when I first started, we were doing a lot of foreign dubbing films. We were doing a lot of kind of low budget, violent, awful films, to be honest. We were doing some Filipino films, which we don't run across a lot now, but then I used to have a lot of them, and they always involved a lot of screaming for the women and abducting and tying them up and beating them and just, this crazy stuff, which actually gave me a great workout early in my career to be able to handle fight efforts and the violence that I often encounter in dubbing games now, or originating games. So back to your question, I'm not sure what the second thing was, but we were doing, let's see, we had a whole series of fairy tales we did. They were these classic fairy tales. Somebody sent me one recently of Little Red Riding Hood. And I think we did Cinderella. We did a bunch of them. But I think the next bigger thing we did was really when I started working with Carl Macek. And Carl Macek had the Macross series, and he brought me in for a lot. He kind of pulled me from the chorus and put me into leading roles. And I was so grateful for those opportunities, and that he believed in me and saw some raw form of my talent that he honed and pounded me into the performance he wanted. He was not a director by nature. He was a great producer and visionary. So he would do things like, I would say a line, and then he'd push the button and get on the talk back and say, yeah, could you do that better? And I'd say, okay, Carl, let's try it again. Do it again. And be like, yeah, that kind of sucked. Could you make me believe you? And I'd be like, Carl, how dare you, damn it. And we'd get in it with each other. It was all very, very loving, but very honest and raw. And he challenged me to really step it up. So I did films with him like Ixer One. What was the really old one? Shoot, it's such a big one too. I can't think of it right now. God, it'll come to me in a minute. But some of these iconic older Ninja Scroll, that's the one. Ninja Scroll and Vampire Hunter D. And I got to play the beautiful Charlotte, who was so gothic and gorgeous and tragic. And we did a big series called Naughty of the Blue Water. And later that was redubbed, but I did the original version. You
had that interesting accent with Nadia.
Very sort of French, but a little bit of African, and and highly criticized. And that was Carl's vision, and so I kind of took the brunt of the criticism on that. But it was okay with me because we were trying something different, and he was really adding a Western element to imported material, and we didn't have purist fan-based contact in those days,
Right.
because it was all pre-internet and all of that. But quickly, Carl found out that people were pretty pissed about some of his choices. So it was a love-hate relationship. Carl was the first person that told me about conventions and how skimpy all the girls were dressed in
Oh,
cosplay and
yeah.
how wild it was. And I never went to one until probably 15 years after that.
Okay.
But yeah, second title, I'm not sure, but it was probably something along the lines of the titles I just named.
Well, because I saw an interview with Rebecca Forstadt where somebody was asking her about Mapletown, and
Yeah, Mapletown.
yeah, that's what she said. It was that she worked with you and Barbara Goodson and Tony Oliver and all the like early.
Edie Merman,
Yep.
Steve Kramer, Tom Weiner.
Yep.
They were all the first guard, and I came in just at the end as sort of the new kid.
So, and I know at that in the late '80s too, you were in, or early, yeah, like early '90s, you were in the first dub of Kiki's Delivery Service.
I completely forgot that. And I
Mhm.
mean, I remember working on it, but I don't remember what I did. And then somebody a fan sent me some art recently, and another girl repeated some of my lines. But I guess I was a witch in training or something.
Yeah. Well, because I was going to ask if you remembered much about it, because I know the woman who played Kiki, the lead role, Lisa Michaelson. I know that. Did you know her?
I didn't know it was Lisa in the title role. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I don't know if you know that she had passed.
Yeah, and there's like no info about her online anywhere.
There isn't. That's tragic. She was a big musical theater star.
Oh,
She was in Les Mis,
oh,
and
yeah,
she was a dear friend of mine. And her husband was a director, Greg Snegoff, that I worked with all the time. And I'm
yeah.
now in touch with it again after all these years. Greg had moved to Italy for some time, and we were all jealous of him, and he's recently moved back here. But she was a gal who a core group of the actors all went to high school together. Tony Oliver and Lisa, and I'm not sure who else, but there's many of the people that you're talking about all kind of know each other from high school.
Mhm.
I think, I don't know what school, but it was local. It was Southern California. And they all knew each other from theater and kind of followed each other into the VO world. And Lisa came and did several of my sessions before she tried jumping in front of the mic. And because she was such a trained, amazing singer, she took to it right away.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we often were competing for many of the same roles. But she was a dear friend, and she had a tragic car accident at a very, very young age,
Right.
in her 20s. And it wasn't even that serious of an accident. And the driver was fine.
Oh,
And she just kind of was unconscious. And many of us felt as if spiritually she let go,
okay.
because her brother was on the other side. And we thought maybe there was a longing of those souls to be reunited, something that we may not be able to describe in this lifetime, but spiritually it made perfect sense. And
Mhm.
that was a really hard experience, going to her funeral and losing her. And that's something that I've shared with several of my closer friends, that when you work with a key group of people for such a long period of time, that keeps growing and
Mhm.
expanding. It used to be maybe 30 close friends, and then 50, and then 100. And now it's probably 500 people I could identify as coworkers,
Mhm.
but there's a tight, probably 60, 80 of us, something like that. And so when you know more people, you lose more people. And I've been to too many funerals and memorials for voiceover friends. It's been hard. But that is the cycle of life, and it's important to remember that, and to show up for those people. It matters.
I guess I can tie that into when that happened with Lisa. Did that kind of did you know did it kind of take you back and prevent you from moving forward in your career at all?
Oh, no, not at all. No,
Okay,
I've used it as impetus.
that's good.
Often we would say the next one's for Lisa, like, let's roll
Yeah.
tape. This one's for Lisa. We'd it felt good to be at work because there you could be supported by the other people that were going through the same thing.
Right.
And you know, we had a long period of mourning. It just felt so like a life had been so abbreviated, so young. And Lisa was just such a shooting star. She was from Les Mis. Who knows where she would have gone? She probably would have ended up moving to New York and working on Broadway. She was that good. And that focused, and it's something I think about a lot. I've lost a lot of gals and a few guys too. Yeah, it's been rough. But wow, you know, do we send them out with a send off? You know, people get up and talk and we cry together, and you know, actors are very emotional, so we celebrate that stuff. We celebrate a life even
Right.
once it's past. Yeah.
So, and around that same time, there's a kind of a mystery around the first dub of Dragon Ball that you were Bulma.
Yeah.
But there's not, you can't really hear very much of it anywhere. Do you really remember the process of that very well?
It's so funny because we picked it up, what, maybe 4 years ago or something? I've been working on it at Bang Zoom Studios.
Okay.
And it was one of these things where I just got a call that I was being booked to come in and play Bulma. And I thought, wow, I wonder why I didn't have to audition. And then when I got into the studio, I started thinking, I've done this character before. It was started to come back to me, and they played me a voice reference from the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. And I thought, I didn't know anybody remembered that I had worked on that show in a limited capacity, but I was, I think, the first English dubbed voice for her.
Yeah.
And Monica Real's the current one, I believe, for another market, right?
Yeah.
And so we're twinsy Bulmas, and we both support each other's performances.
Yeah, and then I know Barbara Goodson was Goku.
Oh, Barbara was Goku.
Yeah, I thought that you did that.
Who is it, KG now? I forgot who it is. Yeah, that's great.
And then I know you mentioned, I'm actually a fan of Ixer One. I know it's this like crazy super 80s horror thing, but that's really interesting to me when I saw that you were in that for the first time, because I know you were with like people like Lara Cody and Julie Madalena. That was one of her first roles. Doug Stone too.
Yes.
When you recorded that, like all of those around the time, were you always by yourself?
Yeah, we always recorded just one actor at a time. It's an efficiency thing. When you get into post-production, there's very little budget.
Yeah.
The joke is, you know, we'll save it for post, but there's never any money once you get to post-production. After principal photography, you burn through majority of your budget. So post-production is sort of Hollywood's bastard child. It's done in, you know, like the basement in a dark environment and late hours, and it's like there's no money and everything's on the cheap, but there's a kind of energy about making your deadlines and getting a high yield of product every hour, and covering a bunch of incidental roles, and just kind of all hands on deck. Let's get this done and get it done high quality but fast. So we have tried every way under the sun of recording, but it is most efficient if you just take one actor at a time, put your full focus on them, and record all of their lines through the script. So that means often you're playing in a scene with another character that hasn't been voiced yet, and you're often playing alone. So when you do play against somebody, it's a treat. But I would say that's probably 40% of the time. Okay. It just depends. If you're booked early, then nobody else is recorded. If you come in later in the recording schedule, you'll hear more of your friends.
So what was your reaction to even then when you were getting lead roles like with Ixer One and you were Yuri in the Dirty Pair movies, and you're already playing like these really strong women, even like way before Faye, obviously. You know, when you got those two big roles or like bigger roles prior to that, what was your reaction? Were you just like so excited to play a strong like female warrior?
Totally. First of all, it was like, yay, I'm going to make rent this month. You know,
Yeah.
that was always the first concern, survival. I'm a totally self-made individual, and that was very important to me. I didn't come from money, and I had no legs up. I had no family. I was very much a solo unit. So just being a working actor and making rent was, you know, awesome. Just
Right.
that. And then I didn't usually know very much about how important the character was until I was in the studio doing it.
Okay.
So usually, even still, you really don't get the materials in advance. There's a couple of reasons why. Now it's a non-disclosure. You don't want to have information and be responsible for information that's not to be distributed publicly, or you could end up being slapped with a lawsuit. So there's that. But there's also the fact that when actors get their material in advance, we're trained to study the material and to commit it to memory and to do the work. Think about what was going on before the scene. Think about the backstory that isn't given and fill it in if you need to, or if you can. So you start making a lot of decisions, independent decisions about your characters when you do that. But when you get into the studio, if you arrive loaded with all of that information, it's not necessarily going to jive with the vision the director has. And the director has the advantage of all the story, all the characters, and the subsequent episodes if it's episodic. So it's far better to just arrive fed, well rested, clear minded, you know, ready for 2 to 4, 6 hours of work, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're standing up and emoting and crying or yelling the whole time, it's intense. 4 hours is kind of the max. Most people like to work 2-hour increments. So once I would get going with the character, then I would find out, oh, this story is being told from this person. This is the lead character, or this is the antagonist, or this is the love interest, or what have you. And it would just get more and more exciting. I think the thing I was most focused on was the challenge of what I was doing. The responsibility of being a lead in a show. Just like I would feel if I'm a lead in a stage play, the whole freaking show is anchored on my shoulders and is depending on my timing and my preparation and my motivation of the audience and everything else. So I would think of it very much in terms of my responsibility to the production. So most voice actors from that genre, because it just gave us stronger voices as an instrument to begin with.
I was going to ask, is there much of a story with Ninja Scroll, since that's such a big movie for like older anime fans?
You know, I haven't seen it since I made it. I just know, I hear talk about, you know, the snapping trap. I don't know all the details. But I remember just the art form blowing my mind at the time. And you know, there was a big influence of Japanese culture in the 80s where, you know, we do our little flash dance torn t-shirts and stuff with kanji written on it, or, you know, cool Japanese symbols. And so all things in the style of Japanese art was just so cool to me. It took animation to the next level for me. I just thought it was so hyper stylized. I just really wanted to add a cool Western stylized voice print and art form to that. I wanted to jam with the images, you know, and make it something really cool. And playing strong women was always something that I aspired to do. So getting to play some of the rough and tumble, you know, belty voiced girls that I played really helped me to be able to play the fighting, strong warrioresses that I get to play so often in games now.
And I guess this is going to be about anything where you're a lead, but in something like Ninja Scroll, where did you ever record with the male lead, or does that ever really happen?
No, we never recorded together. It's always been the same formula, with very little exception. For original animation, we're usually all together. At least
Yeah.
for most rooms can accommodate 4 microphones live at once. But for dubbing, because you have to preview the line, kind of memorize the timing, and then go in and record it to picture. And usually that's going to take 1 to 3 shots to get it your first good take, but it can take as many as 7, 8, 12 takes or
Yeah.
more. So if you've got one person recording and the other one sitting and you're paying for both of them at the same time, it's just not cost effective.
Right.
Any downtime is expensive in the studio because you have to factor in that you're paying the actor, the engineer, the director, and often there are clients that are there as well. So it just gets too expensive if you have people on standby.
Yeah. And I know somebody who was in that who you worked with, or well, you were on the same cast with a lot in the earlier days of anime. Were you ever friends with Richard Cancino?
Oh gosh, he's still a dear friend. I
Oh,
love Richard. He
good.
sends me a daily list of jokes to this day.
Oh, that's
I'm
so
on his joke email, and he always has all these great like little comic strips or sarcasms, or it's just so fun. He's a great guy, and he's Hollywood pedigree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had always wondered what kind of happened to him because he seemed to be in everything that I personally liked anime wise, and then he kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, he does a lot of looping on films. So
Yeah.
he's still working very behind the scenes. I always try to get him in on my shows, and he's always like, "Oh, what are you doing now? Oh, God, all right." You know, he's got this attitude that has made people think he doesn't want to be there. But
Oh,
it's just him. It's
yeah.
just who he is. And he's just got a great voice and that beautiful $1 million smile and those dimples and twinkling eyes. You know, he's just a joy. He's just one of my dear friends.
That's good. So then, I guess this is moving ahead a little bit, but one of the main roles of yours that when I was growing up that really uh, impacted me a lot in the series too was Fushigi Yugi.
Ah, mysterious play. Yes.
Yeah. What was because I know that was like there were so many people in it that are like renowned now, and did you was that still a thing where you were completely solo, or but I know that Bridget Hoppin was directing too.
Yes.
So
Bridget's a dear friend too. It was
yeah.
so fun working. It was a lot of girl power behind the scenes. It was great. Um, that was with Kevin Seymour and Animes at a studio called Magnitude 8. And we just kept getting more and more titles. That thing just went on for years. We
Mhm.
would have a series, then we'd have OVAs, and then a part 2 and a part 4. I don't even remember
Yeah.
how many versions of it we did, but it was very comprehensive. It went on for a long time, and my character, as I recall, was pretty troubled. So it was a kind of a dark place I would go with her. And I never fully understood the material because I was always exploring it just from her perspective.
Oh, okay.
So it was always truly mysterious for me, and it was called a mysterious play in English. So yeah.
Well, because I was going to ask you what you thought of Yui as a character.
You know, all I remember is that, you know, and you could probably help me more. It seemed almost like she had some amnesia about some of her past. And she was just very, she seemed to be working the best she could with what she retained. What can you tell me about that? Because there was always something mysterious about it with her.
Well, the story of it, is that her and Miyaka get transported to olden day China, and then they get split up after the thugs come, and Tamahome saves them, and then Yui thinks that she got raped when she actually didn't, and the guy that
Right.
the guy that she meets like brainwashes her into not liking Miyaka and thinking that Miyaka intentionally left her to die, and then that's the reason why that like builds the whole series, is because they're on two opposite sides and they're both leading these like armies of warriors against each other. And then at the very end, when they're back in Tokyo and like the warriors are back in present day Japan, like Yui sacrifices herself to wanted the like her god of that part of the land, because each land in Fushigi Yugi had like different animal gods. And then yeah, like Miyaka saves everything, and then they're friends again at the end. And even in the Fushigi Yugi OVAs, they're still friends. I'm not
That
sure.
would confuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to say, which mode are we in now?
Yeah.
And really rely on the director to keep track of the timeline, because we were jumping all around. Yeah. I remember it kind of, really exploring the depths of friendships, of their
Right.
friendship, and, in every way. And the challenge of, working stuff out. It was pretty dramatic. It was heavy.
And I actually, my main hobby is collecting production artwork, like cells and stuff for anime.
Russian? Did you say Russian?
No,
No.
production artwork.
Production. It got zoomed. I couldn't tell. Got you.
So I collect like the animation cells and stuff for anime back then.
Yes.
And one of my favorite things I have, it's a model sheet that's all hand drawn of Suzaku's human form.
Oh, wow. Oh, nice. And
So
that's just a sketching?
Yeah, it was done by the lead character designer of Fushigi Yugi.
Oh, wow. Nice. I was collecting cells too for a while, and then they started to get to be so expensive.
Like from shows that you were in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few. I have a Yuri from Yui from Dirty Pair. Wait, is that right?
Yeah.
I have one of those. I've always wanted a Faye, and she was, I think the cheapest one I ever saw was like 125, and I was still a struggling actor, so I couldn't afford her.
Yeah, Bebop production art is like one of the most expensive nowadays.
So expensive. I don't think I've seen anything under 600 or 700. Even that might be low.
Yeah.
I do have a small collection, though. I used to keep it displayed so nicely, and now I think I'm going to just archive it and keep it in a book.
Yeah, well, that's actually really cool, because you're one of the first voice actors I've talked to that actually did that, like collected production artwork of their own characters.
I love cells. Just examining the art form, drawing to me is such a mystery. I wish I could be a graphic artist, but I can see the vision, but I have just respect for those that can get it out and down on paper.
And it's really just like so crazy to me.
Background art.
Oh, what? You're breaking up.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, just like it's so crazy to me too how back then how everything in anime had to be hand painted like frame by frame so meticulously.
Just amazing.
And then so you were, and then at that same time of Fushigi Yugi, I know that's when you got Tenchi Muyo and Love Hina.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, those were some big roles of yours too.
That's right, Tenchi and Tenchi Muyo, Kenshin with with Richard. Gosh, all those great shows, and it's so sad because I've got a record for the most dubbed content by a English-speaking actress in North America. So I think I have close to, I know it's in the 600 titles, something like that. And when I go to think back on the shows that I'm doing, I only usually think of the stuff in the present, because there's so much to think back on and be responsible for. It's difficult to remember all that catalog when you're thinking about really what you're working on now, It's hard.
Yeah.
Just adjusting the light, sorry.
Yeah, Kenshin's actually probably my number one favorite anime if I can pick one. Just, I mean, his character and everything, and both voice casts in both languages. And I know obviously you were Yahiko, but nobody mentions that you were Yumi too, and that was just incredible to me.
Oh, well, Yumi I was credited for. Yahiko, the Kame Kashin style. I had to use an alias, which we worked it out with the company, but there was a time where certain companies thought that I was a little overplayed.
Oh,
So I was auditioning with aliases, and because I know it's difficult sometimes for production companies and audiences to understand that a voice artist is a vocal chameleon. We
mm,
have a bunch of different voices, you know, and they might have known my female voices, but they didn't know my boy voices. So
yeah, right.
there may have been some disappointment there for a while, but hopefully that wound has healed.
Do you remember much about because every time I watch it, it's so incredible. Yumi's death scene in that, like the way that
Oh,
that's so
does she
intense.
pass in his arms or something? Isn't it really tragic?
Yeah, because it's the final battle, and then like Shishio stabs through her, and she's like, "I'm so happy I finally got to be used," and then she just, yeah,
That is like the classic heroine Japanese death, you
yeah.
know, like the selflessness right to the last minute.
Um, did you always like, especially in scenes like that, are you always initially given to go off of the Japanese emotion?
One more time?
Like especially in scenes like that, does the director tell you to really go off of the Japanese emotion of the
Well,
Japanese?
what we do is preview and take a listen to what they did
Yeah.
because, you know, it's done and that's what the production company wanted.
Mhm.
So we want to honor what it is, what they set the bar, more or less. This is how the performance was originally. So we certainly need to meet that bar and or up the bar is sort of my goal. Um, not to upstage, but to add more content
Mm.
for the viewers' pleasure, truly. So I think we're all looking at the same goal, recreating something that's beautiful and honoring the emotional content in the moment. So I think sometimes the director has something more in mind than might be obvious, but I think in most cases it's like in that case, it was sustaining the death speech while also fading out
Mm.
and actually resigning from life, but getting the dialogue delivered before her final breath. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's just we're all working toward that same goal of like the very best performance we can get.
Mm. Yeah, because I know, I mean,
Move the audience emotionally.
yeah, yeah, and that was just such an amazing put together of you and Steve in those two roles.
Was so fun. Anytime we get teamed up, we're just thrilled.
Yeah.
We had that whole series, The Big O, and
Yep.
I was Angel, and gosh, she was just, her design was so cool. She's the one character I would really love to cosplay.
Yeah.
She just has great outfits and style, and so kind of spy motivated. Yeah.
Right. And
And
another big show that, or for me anyway, it has a good following that in that same time too that got dubbed is you were in Vampire Princess Miyu,
oh, that's right.
and
There were
nobody ever talked
several
about
of
that.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, every time you name one of the shows, I immediately see the studio where I recorded it. And
Oh.
that studio was the very last breath of Intersound Studios. They
Oh.
were no longer on Sunset, but they had moved to a new location, still in Hollywood,
Yeah.
but they had become more corporate. They had teamed up with another production company, something like Sony. I think they may have been scooped up by Sony. So yeah, I immediately thought, oh, that's the studio where I enter the big doors and I go down into the basement and take the elevator and walk down the hall. And you just see, like, you recall
Yeah.
where your work environment was. Yeah.
And I actually saw this show at the same time as I saw Fushigi Yugi. Another one of your earliest roles that I remembered instilling in my head was Gatekeepers.
Oh, Real About High School? Or is Gatekeepers different?
That's a different show.
It is different. Whoops. Yeah, Gatekeepers. Was that the Water Dragon one? Where she says Water Dragon? Oh, maybe not.
No, that
That's
was
the other one.
yeah.
What was Gatekeepers about?
That's a group of high school students that they all have like different elemental powers that are called gates. And
Yeah, that's and okay. What was mine?
it was like light and healing.
Oh, light and healing. Okay, so no, not water dragon. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
Umi. That was Magic Knight Ray Earth.
yep,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what you're thinking of.
That's the one. But I remember Gatekeepers was something we spent a long time on. That wasn't the Rudy. What was my character's name? Do you know?
I just had it up.
It's so hard to. Well, if I put up my cheat sheet, I do much better. I probably should have.
It's Rory.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was a very hard word to say. A Japanese word that we really really struggled with. Is that the one where the guy she talked to always had a Band-Aid on his nose?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I remember. It was cool.
And I actually, one of the things that helped me through, well, this is like a story, but Fushigi Yugi and Gatekeepers, I was in 4th grade and I was renting them via Blockbuster's DVD mail system, like prior to Netflix.
Nice. Yes.
And there was an incident that happened with my family. We were out to eat and it was like a normal night. We were about to leave. And then we were told that nobody can leave because there's a guy that like shot someone and crashed his car outside the restaurant. He's like fleeing on foot. So like everybody has to stay in the restaurant. Nobody can leave until he's subdued or whatever. And we were there for like 4 hours. We couldn't leave until midnight, and we had to everybody had to get individually escorted out. And obviously when you're as young as I was then, that's like really traumatizing. So
How old were you?
I was like, God, 4th grade, so I would have been like 8 or 9, I think.
8 or 9, yeah, that's young. Sure.
And so that's because right on the night that we went out, I mean, I was in the middle of renting both of those, and I mean that's what I took solace in was coming home and watching both of those shows to like help me get over everything.
That's great. Yeah, we hear that so much with anime that it's certain titles are something that really acted as a crutch or support for our fans to get through a difficult time. And I wonder why anime provides that more than other art forms, or if all art forms provide that and we're just hearing about it from our fans with anime. But I think it comes up every single time I have contact with the public in some way or another. And it's an honor to be any part of anybody's support team, and I'm so glad that those, slight diversions were enough to help a young guy get over a hard time. And I'm glad you shared that with me,
Yeah. And also like a big thing that helped me too, just with bullying and whatever was, I got introduced to the Dot Hack series when I was like really young too. And that's another thing that I immediately picked up on your voice.
Oh, I love it.
Black Rose.
Well, Black Rose, yeah. And she was tough and kind of sweet too.
Yeah.
She kind of had, yeah. And it was, God, it was the beginning of playing a lot of really strong gals. And I'm so glad that sometimes I get to play characters more like that where they also have humor. I love that. Really, my thing is high drama and high comedy, so anything I can do combining those things is just such a treat.
After Bebop, were bigger roles kind of easier to come by with you, or was that just like another series?
Oh, well, Bebop wasn't just another series. We knew something kind of special was going on there. And it was a really nice group of talent, so that felt very special. No, I still audition to this day. I was just auditioning before I connected with you, and sometimes it takes longer than you expect.
Yeah.
I don't get some studios call it paper cast, where they're able to just supply who they want to play each role rather than supplying auditions for each character. So sometimes I've got a paper cast where I'm just invited to come in and play, but mostly I have to really be in competition for every role that I'm up for, and I'm still auditioning all the time. And it's freaking hard because we audition at home by ourselves with no feedback from anybody. So we're just doing our best to interpret whatever copy has been provided, and if there's any backstory or descriptions. I had some characters I was reading for today with a lot of description but no images. So it's very difficult to know, well, is this girl like rough and tumble and wearing khakis, or is she a princess and has a cape? I mean, who knows? They don't often tell you. But I did get to put together a workshop for Square Enix, and I went down and taught a class to the developers explaining how important it is to how you break down your script. Has a lot to do with the success you'll have in casting. Because often for our casting notes, we'll get a ton of backstory on a character, but they won't tell us something as basic as how old they are and what the voice type is. And as an actor, you need an image. These are the things you want the most. We don't always get all of these things by any means, but you want to know the age range. You want to know kind of their class, where they exist, kid from the streets, someone highly educated, a professional in the military, whatever it is. You want that general idea. You want a sense of what their objective is within the title. So are they motivational? Are they putting teams together? Are they dividing people? Are they in it for themselves? Whatever it is. And what we'll get often is, this character was loyal to the previous government, which was that, and her parents were in da-da-da. I mean, this tells me nothing about the voice. And then it will say, this is often what we'll get from Japan, their blood type. That means nothing in the US. To Japan, it's sort of like horoscope. But we won't get the real basic essence of how to hang a character's voice on a character. So it's always been a dream of mine to sort of work with dev teams, development teams, and help them shape their scripts and break them down in a way that you're providing essential information to an actor so they can give you a fully formed version of the character for you to select a voice from.
Yeah. That's actually interesting that you mentioned that it was for Square Enix, because I know one of your first video game roles was in The Bouncer.
Oh yeah, it was. I'm trying to think Fear Effect was my very, very first game. Which was so cool because I played Hana, who was a girl who was very much in love with another woman, and I was like, this is going to start changing the fabric of how we see sexuality in the US. I was really happy to have a girlfriend and be part of that. And, now we've got a Me Too movement that has kind of gone all the way right through to, we're in a place now where casting is so sensitive. They really don't want you reading for roles that are transgender or African American or Asian or anything else unless you are that type. And as a voice artist, I've been a vocal chameleon, that too, hopefully, all my career. And I've been able to play all ethnicities, all genders. I've been incredibly vocally fluid throughout my career. And now I'm being put back into a box a little bit, and I'm not allowed to read for many of those roles now. So I'm kind of disappointed. But at the same time, I'm completely celebrating those actors who have had a disadvantage to be elevated up into a point to give them an advantage. So when I'm casting, if I can find a transgender character to read for a transgender person to read for that character, heck yeah, I'll supply those first. But if I run out of people, I just think it would be nice if we could include everyone. That I did have a project I just read for yesterday that said, feel free to vote. Something's on my mind. Feel free to read for any of the characters that are listed, even if you are not that ethnicity or that gender. And I just thought that was so cool, because some of the men that were in their 20s, women were reading for them. And
Oh yeah.
I got a little nervous because I really only read for boys till they're like around, I don't know, 11, 12, and then I get into like 14 or 15, and then kind of beyond that, like 16, you need a guy. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to really cover that range anymore.
That's what I was just about to ask. Back when you started doing boy voices, was that like your decision that you wanted to do because you wanted to, range yourself more?
Yeah, I wanted to be hired more.
Yeah.
I needed more money. I needed to open up what I can be cast for. So I started listening to the best voice girls that I knew, and I just started with Barbara Goodson, and I
Yeah.
just shadowed everything she did, and I just learned from her examples. And to this day, she's one of my dearest friends, and I love her so much. So she really helped me see myself by example. Not that she was coaching me or per se, or really all she was encourage me. And just a little bit of encouragement early in your career can make all the difference. Because I
Right.
didn't know if it sounded like a boy, but my voice is so naturally deep, and it always was, that it was a natural progression for me to find that. And I really felt liberated by having some the feeling of testosterone in your voice. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it just felt like it opened the horizons for me. And I just felt so liberated by that opportunity. And it's been a big part of what I do. I'm currently the voice for Detective Conan.
Oh.
So I'm doing all the Detective Conan films that are coming out currently.
Oh.
So I'm still playing guys. I have a nasty little phrase that I say for him, but I can't say it now. I wish I could. I shouldn't have said anything. I may have shrunk, but not all of me. That's kind of what I say, except it rhymes.
I think this is my personal opinion, but I think one of the best female voices for boys in anime is Brienne Siddall.
Oh, yeah. Because she just naturally said, if you called her house and she answered the phone, you'd say, "Oh, little boy, could you get your mom on the phone?" You know, she
Yeah.
just sounds like a guy. It's great. Definitely.
And I know you've been in like ton of stuff with her, even going back to like the very early days.
All the Saban stuff, Digimon, Super Pig, which I don't think was released here, but Julie Madalena was the lead on that. Gosh, so many shows we did, and I'm just drawing a blank. I mean, it was like 6 years of full-time work. I was directing full-time for
Oh,
years for Saban, and sometimes I would work double shifts. When I was directing Outlaw Star, I was directing Monk Holy Nights in the daytime, and then I was doing Outlaw Star at night. I'd have an hour dinner break, and then I'd work all night until midnight.
oh
And
wow.
so double shifts for a long time. That was rough. But, you know, I tell people you have your workhorse years, and that was really
Yeah.
my 30s and 40s. And you can burn yourself out for a period of time if you nourish yourself properly. You've got to have nutrition, like serious nutrition, thinking of nutrient dense food, not crap food. And you've got to sleep. If you can pace that stuff, pace yourself and stay hydrated and still work out and still have friends and still have a good time, you can work that hard for periods of time. As
Yeah.
long as you know there's going to be a break at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah. But you don't want to just do that forever. It's a grind, and it
Right.
could, impede your success. Yeah.
So what was the story of how you became Haruhi Suzumiya?
How did I become Haruhi?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking, I'm a little unsure if I auditioned or if I was just cast. I think I was cast, but Bondi had me audition anyway. So I didn't know that they had a plan. And their plan was to use, and I can't think of her name now, the Japanese actress who covers her.
Aya Hirano.
Aya. They wanted her. I put a happy birthday notice for her on my Twitter page on her birthday this year. They were going to have Aya play Haruhi and Konata in Lucky Star.
Yep.
And so they got the idea to do the same thing in English. And so I was for both those roles, for Haruhi Suzumiya and for Konata. And it was such a blast and such an honor and such a cool time in my career to sort of walk in as Cinderella and put on the slipper and it fit. I didn't have to sell myself and try really hard. And I did have to, I think I did, as I say, have to audition. And I remember perfecting it. And I think I even did a callback where I worked with the main producer on that. And we found the voice, and I was just thrilled when I found out that that was going to be the case. So it was really fun to live in Haruhi's world and in her shoes for a few years.
Mm. I love that you, I think that was, yeah, that had to have been the first time that you actually got to sing like character songs too.
You know, I'd actually been doing a lot of singing. I'm a lyricist and a poet, so I write and adapt lyrics quite a bit. I did the vocal theme song for Hello Kitty for Saban, and I did it for Stump Village as well. So I adapted both of those theme songs and sang the leads for both of those. I also did all the singing for Mimi and Digimon, and that occurred a few times. And I had other shows that were musical. I was a musical theater person, so
Yeah.
that was my profession before I was in voiceover. And I often would go in and stunt sing for people. You know, I'd be there if the actor didn't sing and I was in their range. Sometimes I would be the singing voice. So yeah, when we, I did. Gosh, I did the Little Mermaid and all these other shows. I can't even think of them all. But Haruhi's probably have a higher profile since in the series when she walks on stage for the first time, like, oh yeah, I'm going to play guitar and sing. And she picks up guitar and she, rocks out an Eddie Van Halen solo. Eddie was a dear friend of mine for a while when I was a teenager. So that's topical too. So yeah, I was just thrilled that Bondi, first of all, I have so arigato Bondi. They've been so good to me. And they trusted me through that process. And when I submitted the adaptations of the lyrics, that was the only time I had written any adapted lyrics where the company didn't have changes in notes and things I had to go back and rework, which is really hard to do with lyrics because you're working with rhyming, meter, timing, and sync. It's actually got to match the formation of the mouth. And with those Haruhi songs, there was English already within the Japanese that I had to maintain. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's something, I had a long line and it ended with God bless. So I had to figure out it was like reverse engineering. You have to go back and find a line that can end with God bless that's going to rhyme with the line before it. So it's like a deconstruction. It just messes up your mind, the way you have to invert and change stuff. So if they had changed anything, it would have been really hard on me. But they accepted everything that I adapted, and I was really happy with the work.
Did you, have you interacted ever with Aya?
I did. I did a convention with her when Anime Expo, the local Los Angeles convention, was in Long Beach. It used to be held outside of LA and Long Beach for many years. And I think it was the last time I did that convention. It was a big convention. And we did a live show for Haruhi, and she and her band flew out and we did a show together. But most of it was celebrating the pop star Aya and her entourage. It was very interesting because they were quite rude to me. And I actually had to, they tried to push me out of the dressing room. They wouldn't let me use the dressing room. And I said I needed to plug in my curling iron because we were there all day for a rehearsal. We had to be there at like noon, and the show was at like 7 or something. And so we had some rehearsals and stuff we were doing that day. And I needed somewhere to get ready. And she had her hairdresser, her makeup person, her wardrobe person, manager. I think she had like 7 people handling her. And I came in to say hello, and they all gave me dirty looks in the mirror and turned. And I just was like, oh, are we in high school? Yeah. So I said, I need to, and they're all speaking Japanese, and giggling and not being nice. And I said, I need to plug in my curling iron. And they're like, oh, and they pointed to a trash can in the hall. They wouldn't let me in the room. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I went out, plugged in my pathetic little, trash can station there to get ready. And the president of Bondi was backstage to greet us and say hello. And when he saw what was going on, he went and had a little talk with them.
Yeah.
So they moved me into the dressing room. They gave me my own mirror and all that. So on stage, I was very, very friendly with her. I didn't want her to feel like, it would be a problem for our fans. We were there to celebrate, our little mutual title and perform together. So it was fun.
That's cool.
Mostly what it was her and her band performing her songs. She did like 5 songs in rehearsal and then 3 songs and there was no time really to cover any other rehearsals. So it's really different when you're a star, a Japanese voice actor star. You're treated like a huge celebrity in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
In the US, it's not quite the same.
Yeah. Because I was just thinking too that a lot of the mainly for older anime, you actually shared the same voice actresses with a lot of, like, one of the main female seiyuu over there that has like the record for highest anime credits. She was also the voice of Yui and Erd in Oh My Goddess.
Oh wow! And we both played those roles. Yeah. Yeah, I often, when I'm hearing the Japanese, recognize Japanese actors.
Yeah.
And several people will say, I've voiced this guy before. I've done this. I've recognized this actor. I voiced. But when you hear the Japanese voice in the preview and then you hear the English voice in the playback, often the timbre and the tone of the voices, the 2 voices are so similar that it's obvious why you continue to voice that same actor's work in different titles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then around that same time, I know you were doing a bunch of video games. I think that was when you first started working on the Tales series.
Oh yes, God, Tales, which has been going on for like 15 years now.
You were, besides being voice director, I mean, you had obviously like decent character parts in a lot of the games.
Yeah, I always hope that I'll get to play too in the cast, and that's not up to me. That's up to Bandai Namco. But again, Bandai, they've been so good to me. So it's always such an honor to be able to jump in, and even voicing random utility characters is fine with me. I love playing utility characters because usually that means you get to do 4 or 5 different characters and come up with different voices for them. And that's always the challenge for me, is what can I invent today? What can I come up with that maybe nobody's heard before?
Mm. And then what was it like for you revisiting the .hack series, because you were Zelkova in .hack and the .hack GU games?
That was awesome. I mean, they're just, so the energy is just off the chain and just so cool. I'm always honored when I get to come back into a world that I've already had a chance to be in, and then they're bringing me back to play someone else. That's a huge compliment and responsibility. So I always look forward to, striving to create something really great and memorable, hopefully, or certainly something that evokes some kind of emotional response or just entertainment.
Mm-hmm. So then, and in that same time frame too, when you started working on Bleach, did you like immediately have a feeling that this is going to be like one of my closest biggest closest characters?
Oh, for Yoruichi?
Yeah.
Oh wow. No, not necessarily, but I did scope her early on. When I saw that character, what I would do is always review each new episode before I would start directing it, so I'd have a good understanding of the storyline, which was always challenging for me because there was so much going on in Bleach with the dualities. That Japanese signature duality writing keeps me on my toes. It's always a lot to maintain. And when you've got a whole cast of characters in the Wako Mundo or in the Soul Society or what have you, and then you've got a whole other structure of story going on Earth.
Yeah.
It's challenging because there's through lines and then there's things that only happen in one world or the other. Nevertheless, when I was reviewing the show and I started seeing Yoruichi, well, first of all, the cat version of Yoruichi was just so interesting to me. And I'm a cat person and I love black kitties. So I was just really interested in the screen time that the cat got. But when I found out the cat was female and turned into a woman, I was like, I approached the producers right away and said, can I please read for this character?
Yeah.
So it's one of the times I really petitioned for a role. I mean, I pushed hard as far as when I'm directing, I try to really put on my director's hat and be humble and not insert myself as an actor. So there's no pressure on the client and they know that I can divide myself, bisect my professional life into two and not let the actor in me hassle them like an actor would.
Yeah.
And that often means I don't get to play and join the cast, but that's the right thing to do ethically. So anyway, I kind of swallowed hard and stepped up, and it's one of the very few times that I've actually petitioned for a role. And both we did the production at Studiopolis, and the producer there and I both were just in awe of her design. Honestly, to me, I thought she looked like she was wearing like an awesome Michael Jackson inspired red leather jacket with like dancer leggings.
Yeah.
So it was like, it just spoke to me. That was something I wanted to try. And she just was exotic. And I played a few dark skinned girls and I just always am drawn to them. That, you know, there's this, I have a lot of Native American in my family, and you certainly can't tell with all the German dominant blonde genes, but
yeah.
I'm always attracted to more ethnic type characters like Nadia of the Blue Water, and even Kiva in Megas XLR has kind of an exotic ethnicity, you know, futuristic, worldly influenced ethnicity. So she spoke to me in that way, and I knew she was going to be strong, and I felt if I could match her strength, that it would be a good pairing. So yeah, it was hopeful.
And
but I had to audition.
yeah. Were you? This is probably obvious, but were you very close with Michael Lindsay, who did
Michael Lindsay?
Yeah.
That's a big one. That hurts a lot. Yes, I was. And even after he moved, I stayed in touch with him, mostly Facebook stuff, but we would chat from time to time. And I don't even get to do that with a lot of my friends that are local. And, you know, he was a stand-up comedian for a while, so he ran all his material by me, and I would tell him when he was funny and when he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he was just, in addition to being really witty and sort of a like whatever kind of guy, like he was not a perfectionist about his voice work. His approach was very laid back and natural, and he'd just keep talking unless you stopped him. And I'm very short pieces of nuanced, detailed segment work. And most actors want to just go for it and like just dub a whole page. And I'm like, you can do that, but we're going to go back and fix every single line, because no matter what, there's very few people who can do that and still match the timing of sync and capture the nuanced emotion of every single line, every beat. So he used to tell me all about his kids. I remember when his youngest was about just like maybe 3 or 4, probably around 4. And he would always say how bright his son was and just how cute his daughter was, implying that she wasn't smart. And we would laugh about it. I would say, she is too smart. He said, I know all she has to be is cute. And I would laugh at him. And later on, he ate those words because his daughter went on to be very bright. But he would say, his son would walk across the room and he'd go, list the planets in order. And his son, while he's walking across the room, would list all the planets and just things that he would do with his kids, and how he would, he'd always critique my shoes. He'd be like, "Oh, you have the sensible shoes on today. Yeah, not good, not advisable." And I'd be like, "Michael!" So "Oh, you're wearing the nice boots today. Good. We approve. We like." Whatever.
Yeah.
He's just, oh, so he was very political, very my kind of guy, progressive, and so smart, and so keyed into current events and science and politics and the environment. And we often would talk about, like, both of us were really interested in brain science. So we would talk about brain study. Like, we're both nerdy like that and we're interested in reading brain studies. Yeah, really great guy. So easygoing. He had quite an edge and a dark side, man. He could go there. But most comedians do. You know, that's usually the pull of wounds that they pull from to really create laughable ironies of life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember because I had been friends on Facebook with him for a really long time, but we never interacted that much. And I remember when he passed away, there were basically everybody that was in Marmalade Boy. I know you were in that too.
That's right. Yes, Marmalade Boy, yes.
Basically everybody who was in that was like posting on his wall, talking about like memories of him at that time. It was really sweet and sad, but it was sweet to see that.
Yes. Gosh, that was really hard. You know, he's still in my casting files and I just haven't been able to bear the thought of deleting him. So he's still there.
This is kind of random, but it's related to knowing voice actors. She's still alive, but she was in Fushigi Yugi too. Did you know Lenore Zahn?
Lenore Zahn, was she in Fushigi Yugi? I didn't know that because she was my Aisha Clan in Outlaw Star.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, I love her. We recently have connected on Twitter, and she's very politically active in Canada.
Yep.
She's holding a congressional seat or a assembly seat or something. Yeah. Really, just before COVID, really, is when I connected with her, kind of late last year. Reconnected with her, and you know, I keep saying I would love to get her in the studio, and she said, "Just cast me, and we'll record from here."
Yeah.
To record, so if I could swing it off the place to pop her into something. She's a really interesting woman. She's very well traveled, and ironically, when we were doing Outlaw Star, it was a night team. We were at one of those situations I described earlier, where we were the evening team, and the engineer and assistant that I had working with me at night was a guy who happened to see her in a run on a show on Broadway, and he was such a fan, and he had to like keep it under wraps. And he was also a musician, and musicians are generally very cool and don't fan out about, you know, they're too cool for that. So he used to tell me about how unbelievably amazing she was in the role. And it was like apparently full nudity and lots of violence, and that she just killed it. And she was very fearless. She's somebody who would really just dive in, and I'd have to protect her because she just start screaming and squeaking and tweaking her voice. So I'd have to gently get her, okay, we're going to do all the mellow stuff first. Now we're moving into the high energy, which is what she wanted to do the most, you know, so please save your voice. Don't scream too loud, you know, that kind of stuff, just protecting her.
Yeah, that's cool, because I know that she wasn't in a whole lot of anime, but what she was in when she did that was, I mean, everything was really great.
Right. Well, she was what was her big character, her original animation character? Not She-Ra, but somebody like that.
It was somebody in X-Men. It was
that's right.
Rogue, yeah.
Yeah. And they kind of had been searching for that role forever, and Lenore really just fulfilled everything the designers, the creative team had in mind for that role. So it was very exciting.
And before I go back to your career again, I'm actually was wondering if you had any stories about Steve Staley, because I'm supposed to interview him next.
Steve Staley. We've been in the trenches together for years, and I don't work with him regularly like I used to. I used to see Steve several times a week. He was involved in all those, gosh, what were all the shows we were doing at the time? Do you know some of his shows?
Yeah, he was in Fushigi Yugi too.
So I would see him at Magnitude 8,
Yeah.
Ranimaze,
He was in
and
Kenshin.
Kenshin. Yeah, and I've cast him countless times. I've had him in almost every show that I've done.
Yeah.
He's an amazing singer. I
Oh,
also saw him and Tony Oliver in a production of Company, I think is the show. And he's just, very positive, upbeat, super direct guy. Like he doesn't have much of a filter. And I really kind of appreciate how blatant he can be at times. And he's
yeah.
got a very kind of upscale, classy style. And yet he doesn't take any of what we do very seriously. Like he's not hung up on the ego involved at all. No, he's really like, so what is this? Oh, so he's just kind of a poor, kind of dumb, whatever. Yeah, okay, got it. I'll play him like that. He does the job and that's done. And, what's your favorite character? The one that's paying the bills now? I'm like, he's just very in the moment. And he's just, just so much fun to hang out with.
So, what was it like for you to step into being involved in Sailor Moon?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's one I didn't have to audition for. That was really exciting.
Oh,
I wanted so much to pick up something like Luna or I don't know, any other character, and they wouldn't let me read because they had me in mind for Queen Serenity.
yep,
So I was super excited. That's what Viz, right? I
yep.
think. Yeah, wanted for the casting, but she has perhaps a fair amount of screen time, but she doesn't say a lot.
Hmm.
So I didn't have that many episodes. So I'm kind of sad that I spent so little time with her. And I wasn't a Sailor Moon girl. I hadn't watched the series. So I didn't
Okay.
realize how metaphysical and crystal based it was. So it just
Yeah.
spoke to all of my little, my spiritual paganism stuff that is all metaphysical and sort of based in elemental arts. So that was really cool to be a part of that. I love the girl power in it and the bonds of friendship. So beautiful.
Mhm. I loved seeing cast wise too. I loved seeing besides the new people, I loved seeing you and Lex Lang and Sandy Fox and like Veronica Taylor, like all these people from the golden days come on to redub a show like that.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. I think that's when I started working with Robbie. Oh,
Robbie,
no. I had been, Damon?
yeah,
I have been working with him and kind of scouted him and brought him into a bunch of I brought him into the Tales series.
yeah.
So, yeah. And we've worked quite a bit together since then.
So then I know more recent stuff that you've done besides Sailor Moon was Durara and
Yes.
God Eater
God Eater, yes.
and Magi.
Oh, for Moegi for Naruto?
No, Sinbad.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then Berserk too, which is another big show.
I don't even know if I had that much involvement in it, but I remember. Yeah.
And I see it a lot of there's such a big fan following for Danganronpa.
That's amazing. I was lucky enough to direct what is it? Something Harmony.
Like Killing Harmony, I think that's what
Killing
it is.
Harmony, I guess that's the word. Yeah. And oh my gosh, what a great cast. So it was all my friends and then some. But we had a little bit of a casting issue with a potty mouth Miyu. And they were going to bring in somebody who was very religious
Oh.
to play that role. And I had to spin around and explain to the producers that that was not a good fit because that person never cusses and use every other word as an F-bomb. And so they had the brilliant idea at the moment to, well, why don't we switch your roles? So the role that I was supposed to play went to another girl, and the girl who was supposed to play another role went to me. So I ended up playing Potty Mouth Miyu. And somebody posted on Twitter just this like a 4-minute tirade of just constant cussing. She has some creative stuff, she says. Pretty funny. It was liberating to record, but oh dear, it's a little embarrassing.
Sure. So I guess some of the final things I can ask, one of them is just a general, like, do you have any, is there any kind of like weird or crazy things that have happened to you in voiceover, like when you've been recording?
I've had weird things like back in the day when I was doing a lot of work with Saban, I would turn the corner and I ran into Rupert Murdoch one day, and there he is, just right in front of me, a couple inches shorter. And this man is a small man, and that was kind of fascinating. I used to work with Bryan Cranston. He used to come in and voice monsters on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and and he was working on a lot of the other animation we were doing. And it's interesting because something about him was always marked with star power. Like you could just tell he was special, like something, and his destiny played out for another 20 years from those days before he ended up on, being the superstar that he is now. But things like that, running into a lot of celebrities just in the hallways. And my whole thing is I tend to not see that. I'm not that focused on what's around me. I'm more immediate with who my dinner partner is or who I'm talking to in a conversation or where I'm going. So I'm usually the last one in the room to realize there's a celebrity around. I've had some funny experiences, with physical comedy, and I've been in studios that were, kind of had hauntings going on, and some things would happen. It's not uncommon in recording studios. The theory is because it's an electric medium that recording phantom sound seems to be something that happens in a lot of studios. But once it's recorded and you can hear it back, it's no longer just, I think. And I've had all of life's highs and lows have transpired for me in the studio because it's been my world for so many decades. And it really is the place that I feel comfortable and protected by padded walls and no windows, so you can be completely crazy, which is a good pairing for me. And I'm just super honored that my medium has been able to keep going through COVID, and that we found ways to adapt and keep right on going, because God knows we all are going to need a lot more entertainment in the days to come till we get through the other end of it.
Right. And I just have to ask, because you mentioned it, what was your story with knowing Eddie Van Halen?
The Van Halens were kind of the local big band in Pasadena, California when I was in high school. And I was good friends with, let's see, what does he call himself? Mark Anthony? He's... No, Michael Anthony. What's it called? Mike Cybulski is his real name. And I was good friends with his friend Steve, with his brother, Steve Cybulski. So we were all friends, and we'd go to the, same parties that they would play at. And I was frenemies with Alex Van Halen's girlfriend, Mindy, and we would always kind of push to see who could get in the very front of the stage and hang out with them afterwards. And they played at two of my girlfriend's 17th birthday parties in their backyard. So they were good friends. They were people that went from very down to earth to star trajectory. And it was the first experience I'd had firsthand of how much people changed once they had stardom and fame. And I learned a lot from that. It was very humbling. And I decided that I wanted to remain grounded. I want to stay who I am and stay true to myself and not get too hung up on the ego. And I think that's everybody's personal challenge as far as success goes in the entertainment industry. Like, how will you handle it? How
Right.
much will it change you? You know, can you remain humble? Can you remain in gratitude? And, you know, you see me doing this. I come back to gratitude again and again. That's the thing that's my equalizer. That's my spiritual foundation. So I think when you think you embrace the stuff that is good in your life, it is a lot easier to handle the darkness
Mhm.
and, you know, not let it become a downward spiral where you lose your hope.
Right.
So I know that our little art form provides a lot of hope and kind of a safe place for our viewers and fans and friends. And, you know, I'm super happy and honored to be a part of that.
Definitely. Yeah. So, was it was growing up and going to like concerts and everything in LA and in that area, was that like as cool as we all think it is?
Gosh, I think it was, you know, I mean, it was the place where you could let it go. You just let everything go and you're surrounded by thousands of like-minded people that are all celebrating their love of the same thing. I mean, that's got to be hugely energetically powerful when you think about one person on stage conducting thousands of people in celebration and cheering and singing, and that's all of us coming together and creating this vortex of power. I mean, that's got to be world changing.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's always been my dream, is to be part of that, instrumentally orchestrating people's emotions in a positive way, moving people en masse. And yeah, that going to concerts and being, you know, I mean, I was so connected. I was backstage. I was in limos. I was, you know, flying to different shows because I was very much involved in that scene, and I was dating a music producer who was working with Tough Gong Records in Jamaica. So we spent a lot of time in Jamaica. I
Oh,
actually was on stage with Bob Marley and the I3s and
wow.
Montego Bay's Sunsplash, Reggae Sunsplash one year, and I actually got to sing with them.
Wow.
And you know, just it's been an honor to be behind the scenes and see how people conduct themselves and all that I learned from it and how it's helped me to navigate my career, you know, which is just a sliver of success compared to any of that,
Mhm.
but humbling at the same time. Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you
Like, yeah, go for it.
did you run into, or like do you have any other stories of meeting like uh really big actors or really big musicians or people that like became big in like when you were growing up and stuff, or when you were, yeah, like
Yeah.
around that time?
Yeah, well, really, the way I got into voiceover is because of my connection through the band Jethro Tull.
Oh,
My dear friend Chris Amson was their live sound engineer, their live sound mixer.
yeah.
And so when he was in between tours, uh, he ended up living in California. He moved from London and ended up living here full time. And so when he was in between tours, he would work in studio, and he
Yeah.
was the engineer, one of the engineers at Intersound. So he's the one that invited me to come and audit a session at Intersound.
Yeah.
And that's how my career began. So he was their live sound. He went on to mix sound for, oh gosh, the Beach Boys, Herbie Hancock, um, Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
He was tracking some of Zappa's live shows with these double trucks full of 24 deck mixing boards. Later, if Frank Zappa had continued into the digital age, as the way that we're using MIDI and Pro Tools and everything now, he would have been able to achieve all of that on his own. But at the time, he needed truckloads of recording equipment to do that. Oh yeah, I got to go hang out at the Warner Brothers sound stages and watch Frank Zappa's rehearsals. I was hanging out with Moon Zappa and Dweezil. And,
Yeah.
you know, I was one time at the Roxy, a big club in Hollywood. I
Yeah.
was the guest of Jethro Tull, and I was sitting at a table with Ian Anderson and Martin Barr and the members of Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
And my girlfriend sitting next to me was saying, "Who's that?" And I'm like kicking her under the table going, "This is the band from you're sitting between Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull. Come on." Yeah, so I was really good friends with Missing Persons. And we were really instrumental in being part of their pep squad when they were getting signed. And Chris Hampson spent a lot of time donating recording time with them and mixing and mastering their album when they first started. A lot of other bands, but those were kind of like the core groups that had a big impacts on my life.
That's awesome, yeah, because that's one thing I like to ask, especially people that I know were always based in LA, because I just talked to Joyce Heiser. She was the lead and just one of the guys. And I just felt like new information when I talked to her that she was good friends with Dorothy Stratton. And Dorothy was supposed to like go over to her house the day that she got murdered. So I just,
wow.
Yeah, like it's always interesting to me to ask these kind of questions, because I know that this is like info from you that no one's ever heard before.
Never. They've never asked. They didn't really know. Like, at one point I'm on tour with Linda Ronstadt, my goddess idol, who I adored, and who was on that tour? The Eagles and Jackson Brown, and I'm in an elevator with all of them, and I'm ready to jump out of my skin because I'm so excited because I love all of them and I'm listening to all the humor. We get out of the elevator, and then there's Mick Jagger, and it's just, I was really circulated in the scene back in the day, and that's kind of the trajectory my musical career was starting to go. And I was doing a little bit of backup singing here and there, but I was working with my own bands. And all of that actually had a huge guiding force in getting me into post-production and ending up in voiceover.
Yeah.
I would just say, sorry to interrupt you, but I just would say for whoever's watching, to be on the lookout in your life for those opportunities, because they arise in the most unlikely ways sometimes. And I felt like I had to learn to be like a catcher, have my catchers ready when opportunity arose, and to identify it, because I would sometimes see that opportunity was presenting itself and people would be like, cool, that audition, good, I finished that audition. And I'm thinking, this is a whole new vein of production. Let's grow this. Let's let them know what I can do, and and see where it goes and acknowledge it. So just I think the real keys to success is identifying opportunity and being in flow and working in a way that it's on your path. It's not pushing a boulder uphill and very difficult. Yes, being in your path and in your trajectory for your goals career-wise can be very, very difficult. But when things flow and work easier, I think that's a divine sign. And a lot of mine came from the music industry. I'm certainly grateful for it.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. It was hearing all this now about you. It's really interesting, surprising that you didn't become like a big session singer for huge artists or anything like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was really training to be a stage performer, to to sing and dance and perform that way. But honestly, I wanted to make a living, and sometimes those more high-profile jobs when you're starting out pay the least, because so many people are hungry to do it that they will do that stuff for free. So performers of all kind can be exploited quite a bit early in their career and end up in a situation even where you end up paying to play, is what we call it, where, your band can play in this club, but you have to buy the first 50 tickets at $20 a ticket, and that means you got to get everybody in. Yeah. So now you're paying to even have time to play and do what your craft is,
So going to TV quick, I just, when you said that you were on soaps and stuff and you were offered TV parts, was it for the other TV shows, what was it, just stuff like Chips and The Love Boat, or like what what?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I never even got that far as
Oh,
far as all the little kind of, you know, B shows that were floating around.
yeah.
I was never offered anything. I had to audition and work my tail off for
Yeah.
everything, it seemed. I a lot of the work I would do would end up on the editing floor and not make it into
Okay.
the final prints for films. But I did a lot of funny little films. I did a roller skating movie called Boogie Nights. I could barely roller skate, but I got a cute outfit and passed the audition and
Yeah.
got a few lines in the film. And but I think most of that ended up, like, a lot of it ends up getting cut out. You know what made it in that film was my beautiful red Carmen Gia. I loved my little Carmen Gias, and they actually paid me extra. If you use your own wardrobe, you get a little extra payment, and
Oh,
if they use your car, you get extra payment. I was in a movie where we had to sit on a freeway for ages, and I made sure to pull my car in the front so I could get extra pay for my car being in the shot.
yeah.
But no, I was auditioning a lot, and I was certainly in the running and playing the game and starting to book things and getting job opportunities. I had a very strange brush with destiny where at one point I had been on the Young and the Restless, and it was a recurring role, and I finished my shooting, and I went with my boyfriend to Jamaica. He was, as I said, producing a lot of reggae artists, and so we were there at a time where there were no cell phones,
Yeah.
there was no internet, so the only way to get in touch really would be to call the hotel or something. And what I used to do is just call my mom once a week whenever I was traveling, because it was so expensive, and I would just check in. Well, as it turned out, CBS was trying to locate me when I was on one of these trips to take over one of the main roles on The Young and the Restless, of
Wow.
a certain blonde girl who is still on the show today, who I just happened to see a couple months ago. But she was negotiating, her contract was up for negotiation, and they were ready to replace her, and they were going to replace her with me. And
Wow.
they couldn't get in touch with me because
Yeah.
I was in Jamaica. So destiny just fell through my fingertips. And almost all of us voice artists have a story like that, some close brush with stardom, or what would have happened
Hmm.
had that, you know, that one that got away actually come to fruition. So um, again, apparently my destiny was elsewhere, but I still think of myself as an on-camera actor, and I'm back to dancing, and I have some choreographic inspiration that's bubbling up. So I may be putting together stuff. I don't know. I'm
That's
working on
cool.
it.
And vocally, when you were singing at that time, were you inspired by like people like Pat Benatar? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
you're more of a rock focus.
Definitely belter, kind of belter soprano-y, melodic singer. Yeah, Pat Benatar, I love. Uh, Kelly Clarkson recently did a cover song of We Belong,
Hmm.
and on her show, she's just been doing some amazing
Yeah.
covers, those little Insta band covers she does. Um, and I love, as I said, Linda Ronstadt, Yvonne Elliman, so many of there weren't that many women in rock yet, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, Janis Joplin and Carole King, and God, so many of the amazing, and then I loved all the Motown singers and Supremes and Diana Ross and all of that. And it's interesting because those singers are still very much my favorite singers, but I really got into world music for a while. I love
Oh,
Peter Gabriel and
yeah.
his Real World label. And he has just done such a beautiful thing of elevating other artists that would be obscure in the
Mm.
far corners of the world, and invited them into his label, and
Yeah.
his unbelievable recording studio in Bath, where he has a big atrium and windows looking over this beautiful lake. And he is my true love, and my husband understands. And, um, uh, so I love a lot of Lebanese and Middle Eastern singers, and one of my very favorite singers is Natasha Atlas.
Oh,
And
okay.
she sang with, what was her band? It'll come to me in a minute, but they did a lot of sampling and kind of melodic, dreamy kind of Western into Eastern music crossovers.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I like I for female artists too, I like to primarily focus on rock, but just as I've gotten older too, I love like Bernadette Peters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just I'm exploring way more as I'm getting older, and I just don't think that the music nowadays is anything comparable to back then, and you know, like 70s, 80s especially. I think that was the best time for music for me.
It's just, it's like sweet music to our ears to hear, a guy of your generation say that. And I got to take a look at one of your other interviews with the musician that you interviewed, who worked with Dusty Springfield.
Oh yeah, Tommy Farragher, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really interesting interview. And
Oh,
I could
thank you.
see him too being, charmed by your love and respect for the genre of music that was so instrumental in our lifetimes and in our childhoods, shaping us. And I'm curious that, what got you into it? Like, was it from hearing it from your family, or how did you get an affinity to those genres?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it did start on just like having the radio on in the car to older stations, but um, I mean, one of the main songs that got me to look into things more was the first time that I heard Into the Night. Like, if I could fly, I'd pick you up and take you, like that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I started exploring way more in rock, besides just the artists everybody knows. Like, that's how I found out that like Michael Bolton used to be a rock singer before he was like what he is now. But and then I just explored more with female artists besides the songs that everybody knew, like the songs that everybody knows by Pat and by Joan, and I just looked way further into everybody else and the whole spectrum of that. And then I found my own voice singing too, and I performed like Foreigner songs and Survivor songs for shows when I was in high school.
Did you ever hear of Rodney Bingham?
Yeah.
He was also someone who was a friend of mine and was very interested in me as a singer. He loved female singers and female musicians, and he really kind of elevated female artists. He was really into Joan Jett and the Go-Go's and the Runaways, and just there weren't that many chick bands yet.
Right.
It wasn't that big of an invitation for women to be in rock yet. And, he was just this guy who totally appreciated and loved female talent. And so, I had my little encounter with him too.
That's cool. Yeah. And I know when I talked to Tommy Farragher, I mean, I'm not sure how well you know E.G. Daily. Like, are you close?
E.G., yeah. I've had spent time with her, but I haven't actually worked with her.
Okay. Yeah, because I was very interested in her professional singing career back then too. I think it's really cool that someone who's so skilled in voiceover had like an actually serious like record deal and had multiple albums out that are, really good to look at by themselves outside of like being an actor and focus on them as, a performer, vocal, like singing and stuff.
That was a good time for women. That was like Tiffany and Debbie Gibson, and there was just kind of a door opened, and more pop singer chicks were being invited in.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always doing what we can to keep making room for women in our industry, women in business in general. And one of the best memes that I've seen since the election was a friend of mine posted, be careful girls, make sure that you're wearing strong shoes because there's glass everywhere. So I do love that. And being part of shattering any of this glass ceiling is exactly what I aim to do.
And this is just random, but have you ever been up here for a convention or anything? Because I'm in Minneapolis.
Oh, Minneapolis! I haven't. I haven't been invited. No, I've been to Boston and Memphis, and gosh, I went to Fort, am I going to say this right? Pigeon Forge? Is that right? Where Dollywood is?
Oh, yeah.
But no, I'd love to come up to your area. Do you guys have, I'm sure you have lots of conventions, right?
Yeah, the main one here, Anime Detour, Kyle Abear comes every year.
Oh, yeah.
And
I hear a lot about that one. Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm surprised that you've never ever been up here.
I'd love to come.
So
Maybe they'll hear us talk about it.
yeah. So the final thing that I can ask you is, when you look back at your roles, and what do you want your legacy to be when fans or like new fans come to look at your work, like from starting from back then or starting today, like when they discover you, like what do you want that to be?
Oh God, that's so amazing. It's important to me, I'm talking more about at this point in my career, downloading what I've learned and by mentoring and coaching and helping other actors and developing talent and stuff. But I hadn't thought about, I do think about my legacy, I guess, but I think of it more in terms of how can I share it? So I haven't thought of how I would like it to be shaped. I suppose that I would like people to know that I wasn't pigeonholed. I don't feel pigeonholed as an actor. That's something I worked hard to expand and to develop, to make sure that I was living up to lots of different characters and voices, so I wouldn't be pigeonholed, and that I'm always looking to discover new voices and find new nuance in the placement of my voices, so they sound convincingly different. But I would want people to know how much love and detail and time and energy I put into all of my performances, and that I just don't phone it in. Most people don't. Most of us are so happy to be doing what we do, but some people are really tasked by the technical aspect of the gig, and it's like playing an instrument. There's a notation for the words, and the way that we indicate pauses are sort of like rests in music: a full rest, a half rest, a quarter rest, and that stuff can be very detailed and very difficult. So I hope that they would appreciate like the full spectrum of emotion that I've tried to convey through my characters, and that I've been authentic in maintaining the performance that was in whatever the given language was, which is primarily Japanese, of course. And that I added a little something to it, and that I was funny as hell, and that they appreciated both the comedy and tragedy of what I bring to my art form, and that they can try and guess my voice and all the little cameos that I've had all over games and animation through the years.
When you, from the very first time when you recorded Robotech, did you ever think that you would still be doing the same thing like 40 years later?
I hoped I would. I honestly did. I used to think, because there wasn't that much work at that time, and I used to think, if I can just do one more voice acting job a week, then I don't have to do this day job anymore. And if I could do 2 more voiceover jobs a week, then I could get rid of that day job. And it wasn't until I met my husband well into my career that he said, if I were you, I would take advantage of your opportunity and dive headfirst into voiceover. And it never had dawned on me at that point, because I'd always had other jobs supporting it, that I could make it a full-time job. And thank goodness games arrived, because that's now at least 50% of what I do. And it has made room for so many more hundreds of other talented people to get into the game and join us and create such a nice variety of talent. But yeah, I always hoped that I could, because voiceover is an art form that allows you to work right through a pregnancy, have a baby, come right back to work, young, old. I had a broken foot at one point, and I think it was the last person in America to have a cast up to my knee. And I came in on crutches for 3 months, and that didn't impede my job whatsoever. And people can come in with their children if they have to. And I'll sometimes entertain them in the booth while the actor's in, the recording booth. So it's like, I wanted the flexibility that this kind of an acting gig provides. And I wanted to be able to expand my horizons, which I've been able to do as a singer, as a casting director, as an adapter, as a writer, as a performer. And I can do different things every day of the week and keep it fresh and exciting. So I'm really honored that I still get to be a working actor.
Yeah, when I was talking to Kitty Griffin, she was the original voice of Sailor Mars, and then she's mostly known for on-camera stuff, but she does like American animation. She kind of got demotivated with Sailor Moon because that was up in Canada. That was like their first experience with anime, and they were only getting paid like $90 a day.
Yeah.
So I know that like even back then with recording anime in California or New York, I can't imagine that it was like that low.
Yeah. Oh, it was much lower when I started in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But that's why the union has been important for us, because even if a production refuses to go full union signatory, we can use the guidelines that the union has laid out for recommended working conditions, how much an hour, how many hours minimum, and we have some protection in place. So I know it's gotten a lot better in Canada. There was a time that there was a great divide between the way the two countries worked, but we're trying to work in tandem a little more and have more equity, across the line, so everybody's getting pretty much the same is the goal.
So do you have a lot of projects like upcoming and that you're currently working on?
I do, and you probably hear this all the time, but most of them are under NDA clauses, and I can't talk about them till they come out. There is a game that I have been working on for a year that is going to kill it when it arrives in, I think it's April. That's what we're hearing, and I wish so badly I could say something about it. I cannot, but it is going to be something very exciting, and it's not entirely new. I'll just leave it at that. And when we went into total COVID lockdown in Los Angeles back in March, I was in the middle of a series, a CG Russian animated series that looks like a gorgeous Disney princess show. But basically it's called Little Tiaras, and it's a school of magic for princesses. Hello, my happy place. Oh my gosh, just fantastic show. And I got to cast it, adapt it, direct it. I play one of the characters. We don't know where it's going to end up. It's been packaged with another show called Kit E Cat, and I forgot the name of the third show, and so they're trying to find a place for them, but I've been getting Google alerts about it, so that's in the works. So I was finishing that show, and I was working on a film, and everything had really, at that point in March, I was at maybe the crux of the busiest time I've ever had in my career. And I just didn't know how I was going to get through 1 month, much less all 3 projects. And then suddenly everything stopped for over 6 weeks. And the world just had to deal that the deadlines were going to be delayed. Yeah. And pretty soon, it was affecting every other country. So Japan understood why we were delayed getting stuff to them, because they too were, but interesting enough, right in the first week of June, everybody started production up again. So I was just as busy as I was in March, all of a sudden again in June and forward. But those 3 things are coming out, and I can't say what those are either. It's really exciting. I was allowed to talk about Little Tiaras. I have some other shows that I'm on. I was directing Rent a Girlfriend for Crunchyroll, and Monster Girl Doctor, where I play Arania, the Spider Woman. She's very genteel and interesting with the softest of an accent. And I have a few other things. What else can I talk about? Let me put on my glasses real quick here. I've been doing work for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And, oh, a cool show, Zuzubaland. It's on YouTube, so you might as well check it out if you're interested. And it's a really interesting little animated show from that's from Brazil in Portuguese. And I play the Green Witch on the show. And she's this very interesting witch. And my sidekick is Barbara Goodson, who plays the witch in my little Tiara show.
That's cool.
So Barbara and I are teamed up again in this one. And I have a few other games coming out. March Comes In Like a Lion, I directed last year. Rilakama and Kaoru. Oh, this is such a cool show. It's on Netflix. It's a stop animation show. And it stars Lana Condor as the main character. And it's so beautifully done. I don't know if you're into stop animation, but when Peter Gabriel did his Sledgehammer video, all stop animation, I was in awe of the art form, how every little thing is moved and photographed and the time and love that goes into it. So that's what this one is. And the Netflix announced that there'll be another season of it. So I'm hoping I get to do it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Well, this was a lot of fun for me. I'm glad that I got to get all this new information that no one's ever publicly asked you, or even probably asked you in general before.
Yeah, you really did. I appreciate, your angle of questions. It's great.
Yeah, so I'll get this up everywhere once, like on different older anime forums I'm in, and obviously my YouTube channel, and I'll send it to you once I have it. If someone told me like when I was in, even like when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, that I'd be talking to Black Rose, like when I was like 20 years later, I would never believe them.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm glad that we made it happen.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All the best, and shoot me a link once you got it.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, everyone.